past few weeks have been below freezing every morning and glum afternoons that weren't much warmer. It was obvious that the time to put the bike away was coming, but I was dragging my feet. Then today it was 45 degrees this morning. It's currently 58, so I got out of work early, went for a nice little ride. Forecast says we're going to be back to below freezing both morning and afternoon, and then snow this weekend, so I suppose it's time to put it away. Now, still want to talk about the big trip and whatnot. I spent all my energy on completing the Iron Butt, not necessarily capturing photos and videos, but I do have a lot of thoughts, as you might expect. Sorry, there's not going to be a whole lot of road footage, just a bunch of boring talking. But maybe you can hang out while I put the garage into winter config. We'll talk about day 9, the epic Iron Butt. For this Iron Butt, I slept quick, hard, and woke up well before my alarm. It was midnight in Aurora, and I had about 1,100 miles planned for today. A busted radiator fan, and it was looking like rain in the forecast. I did some quick route planning on my phone, laying there in bed. I was 8 hours from Kansas City, 12 hours from St. Louis, 16 hours from Indianapolis. The excitement of the Iron Butt, along with the elevation and causing the shortness of breath, I wasn't able to get back to sleep. In fact, my heart rate was 135 beats per minute, so decided it's time to get up, pack up, and head out. So just after midnight, the guys, my host said that they'd be up typically until about 1 a.m. and mentioned they might be up until 2 when I was originally planning to leave, but they weren't up and around, so I just headed to the nearest gas station with my Iron Butt forms, explained to the clerk I was attempting to do this endurance motorcycle thing, and I needed a witness to sign for it. He graciously signed the form and left his contact info with me. Talked to a few other people in the store. Maybe my approach wasn't right, but they didn't want anything to do with me. So I filled up the bike, got my first receipt, documented on the log, and start the clock. It's 0:42 Mountain Time. 0 miles, 1,100 to go. And let's drain the oil out of this guy. Started the journey on the road in the dark all by myself. I could see a thunderstorm up ahead, and I was glad I had put the suit on as a preventative measure as opposed to wrestling with the idea of when to stop and put it on. I hadn't gone very far when I got flashed by a bright light on the side of the road. For a moment I was kind of out of it, thinking that maybe I'd been caught by a speeding camera or something, but I was consistently monitoring the temperature and the speedometer like I would normally do. I thought I was doing a better than average job of keeping it under the radar there. Then I got another flash, and it freaked me out. I just kept moving on. I didn't know what to do, what else to do. I was wondering how many tickets there might be in the mail when I got home. A little while later I saw an airport runway on one side. It lit up and faded out. A few cycles later, it lit up and faded out again. I realized that there were lights on the top of irrigation systems, and I figured, well, that must have been what the flashes of light were that I was thinking were speed cameras, just they were a lot closer to the road than these guys over here. So the first tank of gas burned through real nice and easy, and time flew by. Other than that speed camera mishap, I was feeling pretty good crossing into Kansas. But I took a leisurely gas stop and stretched out a while, having a snack before getting back on the road, which also gave me time to organize my trip log and think about how to best store the gas receipts for this Iron Butt submission. It's now 0330 Central Time, 183 miles down, 917 to go. Still feeling pretty good. Let's get this garage cleaned up. halfway through that second tank of gas, I was starting to feel the adrenaline wear off, so I stopped at the rest area and laid down for a nap. I knew I didn't want to get to the big city at rush hour, so taking some time here was a good idea. I plan to take a full hour on the picnic table. It's now 4:04:41 Central Time, 262 miles down, 838 to go. Despite planning on an hour, 15 minutes of good rest, and I was up because I was uncomfortable on the picnic bench, so time to get going. I stopped for gas not too much later and didn't really read the traffic flow off the exit, which caused some honking and flashing from the car I pulled out in front of. It wasn't a near collision, but it wasn't a polite pull out in front either. Regardless, I thought hard about the idea that I was a weary traveler and I really can't be making these kind of mistakes, so I got gas, documented the stop. Now it was 06:40 Central Time, 359 miles down, 741 to go. Let's get some oil back in this guy. Alright, so back on the road, there's light rain coming down now. It's just starting to dawn, still nobody around. It reminded me a lot of that first day on the trip out. I was really starting to feel the effects of my lack of sleep, and a strange thing happened. Just like that first day, I went to turn on the turn signal. For some reason, I just grabbed the clutch. I recovered promptly and smoothly, but it reminded me perhaps I was playing with fire. I ought to be more cautious. It's twice now I've screwed up, and the next opportunity I pulled into a rest stop looking to lay down for an hour again. It was 8:40 Central Time, 430 miles down, 669 to go. Again, despite my rest here an hour decree, I only managed about 20 minutes of sleep on a picnic bench and under a covered pavilion. But before getting on the road, I took a bit more of a break to collect myself. Stretched out, walked around a little bit. Well, the sun should have been up by now, but it was raining pretty hard and the cloud cover was keeping the sun away when I pulled off the interstate and into a gas station around Topeka. Took a long break trying to let my hands dry out and wondering why I never invested in waterproof gloves. 10:40 Central Time, 528 miles down, 572 to go. Saying it's going to snow this weekend, so I better get this snowblower out and make sure she still runs. Alright, back to the trip. So I got off the interstate. I noticed that the GPS had recalculated some weird route, and after I got gas, it wasn't telling me to get back on the interstate. I decided not to follow that and not to go on these back roads. I was on a mission here, so I just got back on the interstate, and a few miles down the way I figured out what the GPS was doing. It was trying to honor my no toll roads input, and I was getting on a toll road. So I grabbed a ticket, stuffed it in my glove all wet and soggy, and was starting to wonder if they accepted iPass or not. I didn't have any cash on me, so if they didn't, it might be pretty awkward to get my credit card out, and then would they accept credit card for $1.50 or whatever it was going to be. So there was a toll plaza at a rest stop. I found an ATM and got some cash, stuffed that into my soggy glove. Next toll plaza, was able to pay and get moving pretty quickly. Now it was 11:39 Central Time, 568 miles down, 532 to go. Snow blowers out, time to put the mower away. That went pretty well. Much like the trip was going at this point, I hadn't really noticed I'd crossed the halfway point, but the sun was coming out, the rain was going away, the miles were going down smooth, I was awake and alert, things seemed to be going great. There was only one small slowdown through Kansas City with some construction where I did have to shut the bike down and push it for a bit to prevent from overheating, but I was making great time and starting to think about the finish. So the next rest area I pulled in and planned for a quick pit stop. I left the helmet and suit and everything on and walked up to the urinal real quick, took care of business. I heard one guy shout, "Hey look, a Power Ranger's here," but with the helmet and earplugs, I couldn't hear what he said next. I didn't really care. He was probably asking me where I was going or something. I just did my business and got out of there. I was heading back to the bike, double time, kind of quick stepping. I heard a scream, and I turned and I saw this elderly lady laying on the ground, and she was kind of holding her chest. And instinctively, I took a few steps towards her because I was the closest person there, but I was in a hurry, and what the heck do I know about medical care? I looked around, I saw a few others were rushing towards her and reasoned that they would take care of her and she would be fine, and continued on my way to the bike. Kind of a weird story, but I feel I have to tell it. As I was heading past the rest area on the bike, getting back on the expressway, I looked and I could see a couple of the others that had gotten to her, had sat her up and got her onto a bench, and she was kind of focusing on her knee at this point, so her holding her chest, maybe I was reading a little too much into it. So back when I had first started planning the trip, the first thing I thought of was Route 66 and the St. Louis Arch. But as you already remember, once planning got more serious and I took advice from other people's, I took another route. Today, other than the 1,100-mile Iron Butt ride, the only thing I had planned for was to stop at a little park I had found when I first Googled the best St. Louis Arch view. But that was the plan before the radiator fan, before the rainy start, before the several snafus that had already crept up. I was doing calculations on the GPS to see when I would hit St. Louis, and it was going to be about 4 o'clock, thinking I could just beat the rush hour if I didn't stop, but if I stopped, I'd be getting into the thick of it. Now, a couple of years ago, our garage door spring broke, and when the guy came to replace it, he told me, "You're supposed to oil these things." I never knew that. First time homeowner here. But now, instead of doing it every month like he suggested, I at least do it in the winter put away, so let's go take care of that. So, to stop in St. Louis or not, I decided on this great adventure I needed to stop and take in some sights. Plus the traffic the other way was kind of getting thick, but it wasn't really stopping at all, so thought maybe I'd be fine. I got off the highway, went through some rundown portions of East St. Louis and into this park. It was completely empty. The sun had been out for a while and I hadn't stopped long enough to take off the suit. Here I was grateful to get out of that sweat-inducing rubber thing and take in some fresh air. I was also grateful that nobody was around because I got a decent shot of the bike in front of the arch by pulling up onto the sidewalk. I even climbed to the top of the viewing station, got the full benefit of the park before getting back on the bike and heading to a gas station for another documented stop. On the way, I got stopped by a long freight train and sat there for a long time watching time slip away and wondering if I was going to be doomed in the rush hour. But eventually I had the tank full and I was back on the road, ready for the impending doom of the traffic jam. It was now 4:55 Central, 864 miles down, 254 to go. Time to put that bike away, start stripping it down. Leaving the arch and back on the interstate, I was starting to see signs saying there was construction ahead and to expect delays. I was expecting the road to turn into a full-on parking lot at any moment. I saw a sign that said Indianapolis 230 miles, and then there was a flashing LED construction sign that said I-70 East, no slowdowns. I was ecstatic. 230 miles was barely more than a tank full. It sounded like my concerns of impending rush hour coupled with construction was null and void too. I flashed forward to the end of the ride, thinking ahead and thinking about calling the wife and how I would tell her that I did it. And tears came inside my helmet at the thought. Trying to control my emotions and the kids having watched the Cars movie several times, I reasoned that even the king crashed in his last lap, so keep it together. The sun was out and I was moving through the country, only Indianapolis left to contend with. I was thinking back to the snafu yesterday when I went to the wrong Airbnb place marked on the GPS. Wondering if my 1,100-mile Iron Butt plan was also flawed, so calculated the miles done, the miles left, and added the miles logged. Figured how many times I could go to the far side of Indy just to be extra safe. That's where my friends were anyway, so I'd be fine. Still, I calculated at least 5 different times, pulling up different gas stations on the GPS that were in the area I was planning on ending at, and thinking maybe I should try to find a fire station on the GPS. Maybe I could get a fireman, somebody in a uniform to sign the iron butt sheet. I hear that's carries a little more weight. But a lot of on-the-road calculating in my last tank of gas. Got some stuff to put up in the loft, and then we'll talk about the end of the trip. The traffic was light going across Illinois, going through the GPS, trying to figure out exactly if I had enough miles and everything. But eventually I realized that other than East St. Louis, which we could technically call Missouri, I was in a position to make it all the way across Illinois without putting my feet down, just like I did when I started the trip, so it kind of became a goal. Just across the state line, Indiana, I stopped at Terre Haute for a quick gas stop, take a snack, and call ahead to my host for the night with an updated itinerary. It's now 8:23 Eastern Time Zone. I had 1,015 miles down on the GPS, and I was planning for another 83 miles to make my iron butt solidified. By this time I had gotten into a really good rhythm. On the road I was watching the temperature as often as, or even more than, the speedometer. And when I stopped, I grabbed a point for the GPS, wrote a log of the time and the GPS odometer, then got on to doing whatever it was I was stopping for. Here I'd been so elated with the idea I was near the end, I had forgotten to log the stop. So I pulled away from the pump, ready to get back on the road, but I realized this, stopped and got the logbook out. When I finished the entry, I looked down and saw the temp gauge had risen significantly, and I cursed myself for almost blowing it at the very end. Caught it just in time, and so once I was moving, everything settled into place, and I was on to my final stop. Speaking of final stop, destination gas station I picked, it was near a fire station, but the fire station wasn't open, and actually the gas station wasn't even a gas station. So I headed down the road just sort of blindly looking for another gas station, and the traffic lights on this road were excruciatingly long. I had to do the shutdown and reset and restart every light cycle. Pulled into the gas station, got my last receipt, and I'd done it. Only thing left was to find somebody to witness on the form. I knew I had plenty of time, so I waited around a little bit, sort of expecting someone to approach me with a conversation about the bike. This has happened several times on the trip. Oh, hey, nice bike, where are you going, what are you doing? But this time it didn't happen. So I headed into the gas station and asked the clerk. He was, again, gracious enough to witness for me and signed the form without really much of an explanation. I went back to the bike, kind of waited around, thinking somebody else might come and I'd have 2 signatures to back up my final position, but again, nothing. So I made my last log entry at 10:08 Eastern Time, 1,098 miles down, and now I had to look up where my friend's place actually was, because apparently I had entered general coordinates again, and it turned out to be about 5 miles away. I noticed there was a liquor store across the street, so I went in to get some celebratory beers. In fact, some dirty bastards, some great stuff. And that was it. Took the next day as a down day to hang out with my friend, and it was a standard boring ride back home. I don't even really remember it. And then to work the next day. I can't believe it actually happened, but It's been more than a year now. Looking back at it, kind of want to do it again, or at least something similar. Hopefully I get a chance to. Maybe this time I'll have better road footage instead of all this boring talking to the camera stuff. Thanks for watching, and sad day for the bike. But seasons change.